I'm going to do my presentation, The Long Road to Commercial Aquatic Species Recovery, the case of Eastern Canada Groundfish Fisheries. And I would like to also to mention my colleague, Josée Laflamme, and our graduate student, Rodrigue Souop, who participate in this research. For decades, the groundfish fisheries has been the basis of world trade, and allowed to develop many coastal communities in the case of Eastern Canada. During the 80s, groundfish accounted for 63% of weight, you can see here in the graph, of the Canadian landing. And then in the 90s, the trend was reversed with the increase of shellfish products. And in the 19th, a moratoria has been triggered. So several emblematic species are in danger of extinction and are no longer subject to directed fishing such as southern cod, American plaice, and hake. The depletion of groundfish stock over the past 30 years has literally changed the game by imposing obligation on states to rebuild this depleted stock under pressure from communities and interest groups. This has led some change in law and policies. Here you can see the timelines and the big steps that has been, you can see the timeline. First, in 1929, there was a precautionary approach policy. It's a method to make risk-based decisions on the level of harvest of a stock. It's very interesting because such as the rebuild plan is called when a stock delay below its limit reference point. Then in 2016, the Auditor General audit has produced numerous criticisms of the implementation of these plans. And the Auditor General said, therefore, are no plan to develop rebuilding plans. In results, therefore, finally committed to develop rebuilding plans. In 2019, the Department of Fisheries and Ocean Canada changed this law with the Bill 68 to give a legal obligation to manage prescribed stock at level necessary to promote. And recently we have this regulation applied. So the objective of our study was to shed light on the dynamic of publication instrumentation in the development of this recovery plan under policy change and under relationship between the governing and other group of interest. We use a theoretical framework, which is a public policy instrumentation with a public policy instrumentation lens. It's a political approach on policy instruments because instruments have their own effectiveness. They are appropriated and reinterpreted by different stakeholders. Every instrument constitutes a condensed form of knowledge about social control and way of exerting it. Instruments are not neutral. We start a qualitative exploratory research on the South Gulf of Saint Laurent in the Northwest Atlantic Fishery Organization. So you can see New Brunswick here, Quebec here, Nova Scotia here, Prince Edward Island, and the south is 44 VN. And in this area, for our case study, we can find 4 groundfish stock in critical condition. That means they are below the limit reference point. Atlantic cod, American plaice, whiter flounder, white hake. And this case gives us the opportunity to observe instruments and processes as, for example, Gulf of Groundfish advisory committee, which is a committee led by the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. And we were observer. And our methodology was based on literature review, academic and grey literature. We explore the report of the Auditor General Audit that I mentioned later, the Canadian Science Advisory Secretariat, environmental group reports, press review. And we had the possibility to do non-participant observation during 4 meetings, but it was 2 days meeting between 2019 and 2022. And our students conducted 9 interviews with fishermen association, government, and environmentalists. So here I would like to present some results. We observed interesting elements on the effectiveness of the instruments, which could be variable from one region to another. An environmentalist told us, I will read a bit of the citation. I would say that it's very much varied across the region and even within region about rebuilding plan development. I've seen various levels of effort ranging from a rebuilding plan totally developed by the department and then a 2-week comment period provided to stakeholders via email, which has very little involvement to a full-blown management strategy evaluation process. And the second element is that the final product of the plan will be public as explained by the official. Several stakeholders expressed concern about how the issue of natural mortality by seals will be addressed. And we noticed a lot of tension over the representation of seal issue during the processes and on the instruments. For example, a retired civil servant told us, from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, told us, I've been open to that already. The evidence seems strong now, but even so, what do you do for recovery plans? I don't know. And I'm glad I don't have to figure out what it should be, but it seems it's a big problem. I don't know what you could do now. I mean, because the delay has been so long, right? We notice, or it appears also that it's a long process. It's very since the beginning we have been to observe these processes. It will be 5 years when the plan will be public. So it's a very bureaucratic process. There are regulatory dimension, an administrative region dimension, a science resource sector dimension, and the science resource and management resource. So some stakeholders told us that it's a very long process. Another stakeholder, a public servant from the Fisheries Department, told us, from an organizational point of view, this is a broad exercise. It's not just me and my office we decide. Otherwise, it will go fast anyway. It's something that takes time. It's also involves several regions. So, what can we conclude right now? We can see that there are particular framing of the issue and participation of stakeholders have to be explored. As part of a regional management context, we saw that human and financial resources could be limited. And we noticed also that the real urgency of restoring the stocks, despite the cumbersome mechanism necessary for the implementation. So for the next steps, we would like to follow the research on the evolution of this process, and we would like to continue our interview. Thank you.